Hello everybody, this is GeneralJannis, and today in Chaos Tactics I'm back in the office, let's say, so bringing you now analysis of the Poxwalkers, the zombie horde of the Deathguard, the 14th Legion. So with no further ado, let's get started. So today, the 28th of July, back from vacation, and I had a chance also to play a 2000-point game, my Chaos Knights versus Sisters, and it was a quite a nice victory, 82 to 23, using tactical missions. It was quite easy to play with Chaos Knight, Desecrator, and Brigands, and what have you. It was quite easy to play with. But as I said in this video, analyzing the Poxwalkers, looking at their data sheets, their damage output, which is now not as good as it was before, their durability, a comparison with other foot squads for Deathguard, the Typhus combo, and is there any use for the Poxwalkers in 10th edition. So let's get started. So looking at the datasheet for the Poxwalkers, we have a 10 model unit for 60 points or a 20 model full unit for 120 points. They still keep their 4-inch move. They have the toughness 4 with no real save, but they now get a 5 plus feel of pain. Previously they had 6 plus feel of pain, so this really helps the durability. They have an objective control of 1, but they are no longer immune to the leadership as they had before. They only have a leadership of 8 plus. Now their weapon skill is also degrading, so only hitting on 5 pluses, but at least the weapons now have lethal hits, so they with plenty of them you could be doing a little bit of damage, as you will see in the next table. Their ability is that the Curse of the Walking Pox, that every time a model in this unit is killing an enemy model, then you could, if it's not a monster or vehicle, you can return a 1 destroyed Poxwalker, so basically infecting zombies, but you cannot go above your starting strength. And when Typhus is leading the unit, if Typhus his Eater Plague ability is killing an enemy, then you can return also destroyed Poxwalker. So that's a quite fine use of Typhus with the Poxwalkers. I've copied here the Typhus Eater Plague. I will also look at that in further detail. So in this table we see the Poxwalkers damage output. We have here in the table the commas are decimal points in the numbers, and this is the average expected damage versus the selected the various targets, as you can see here from 10th edition. And we see that, for example, for improvised weapons, one of the Poxwalkers, he would be doing 0.4 wounds on a Termagant, he will be doing 0.13 wounds on a Rhino. If you have a 10-man squad or a 20-man squad, you can see the total damage here. So 20 Poxwalkers will be able to kill 7 Termagants, 1.5 Intercessor, half a Terminator. But because of the lethal hits, they can also score some wounds against some of the tougher targets, bypassing, let's say, their toughness, the wound roll. And we have 2.5 wounds on some vehicles here. The 5 plus weapon skill, of course, is not really helping out here. Only strength 3, but at least lethal hits is a bit helpful. The Cultists, just a comparison of something that's quite similar. The Cultists also quite a cheap unit with many models. They are hitting on 4 plus. This is helping them. They do almost equal damage to the infantry, low level infantry. But versus tougher targets, the brutal assault weapon is not as good because it doesn't have lethal hits. But of course, the Cultists they have shooting as well, so they can do some damage also from range, while the Poxwalkers only have melee capabilities. So now moving on to the durability per 100 points, and this is quite a busy table, but I just want to talk about this table just to introduce the concept of an index I will be using going forward. So in this table we have every row is a certain weapon profile, from the, let's say, Stormbolter up to a Desecrator, Laser Destructor, very heavy weapons for heavy elite targets. But we have, let's say, the bolt rifles and bolters versus more let's say infantry types like the Poxwalkers here. And we see the weapon profiles I've been simulating, and then we see, for example, for Poxwalkers, 19 Stormbolters at half range will be required to kill 100 points of Poxwalkers on average. Compared to that, the 12 Stormbolters at half range would be required to kill 100 points of Cultists. So we see here the Cultists as not as durable as the Poxwalkers. Then we compare here to Intercessors, Plague Marines, Blight Lords, and Chaos Spawn. Just a comparison here. So we see the Poxwalkers overall for many of the weapons they are quite good per point durable with their 5+ feel no pain. Looking at something like a bolt rifle, they don't care about the AP basically, the warp smite or something like this. They can take many more shots compared to even intercessors and plague marines to kill 100 points. Of course, you should remember 100 points killed intercessors. That's five dead intercessors, but it's more than let's say 17 or something killed Poxwalkers here. I will be using an index later on, so I will take the average of all the light weapons and then the average number of attacks to kill an intercessor. I call that an index 100, and then I calculate all the other units compared to that index. And of course, if you have something like very heavy weapons, they are not something that you would target on Poxwalkers. The per point durability is very good for Poxwalkers versus these high weapons like soul shatter cannons or something like that, because of course the enemy is just basically wasting a high value heavy weapon to kill a 6 point model here. So in this table I have a point corrected overall comparison for the Deathguard foot units. So we are starting here with the Poxwalkers. The minimum squad is 60 points. You can see the damage versus the GeneralJannis infantry. I've been calculating the previous pages per 100 points, point corrected here. So we see, of course, the Poxwalkers don't have any shooting damage output versus infantry or vehicles, but in melee they can do 2.9 for wounds per 100 points versus infantry and 1.9 versus vehicles. And here you can compare, for example, to the Cultists. The Cultists have a bit higher versus infantry per point, but not as good versus vehicles. The Cultists, however, they have some nice shooting on top of this. And we see here, for example, the Chaos Spawn is more, they have more per point melee damage output versus infantry, but not so much against vehicles because of the lethal hits. And we see the durability index I mentioned before. The Poxwalkers, this is one of the strong points. So an index of 133 versus the light weapons. As I said, intercessors are index 100, and therefore the Poxwalkers can take 33% more damage to lose 100 points here. Versus heavy weapons, as I said, chaff infantry is very good per point, but that's not typically the target that they are using. So you can see per point they are actually even more durable than the plague marines, but not of course as durable as our Blightlord Terminators, which is the most still one of the most durable versus light weapon units that we have. But not very high damage output for the Poxwalkers, and no Poxwalker stratagem like we had before to deal some more damage and to deal some mortal wounds. Nice durability, as I said, and also the ability to be resurrected is really good, especially with Typhus. So looking at the Typhus and Poxwalker combo, Typhus can be a leader of Poxwalkers as well. Typhus himself has a nice melee weapon with both sweep and strike attack with lethal hits. He gives extra protection in melee to the unit he's joining. Unfortunately, it would be nice if it also would be helping the ranged damage. Then you would be quite helpful here for the Poxwalkers, but that would add more, typically 33% more durability, being -1 to hit versus the melee weapons. And then the big combo, of course, is the Eater Plague. His Eater Plague ability is psychic ability that you can choose an enemy that is visible, one enemy within 18 inches and visible to Typhus, and you roll a d6. On a 1, you are dealing mortal wounds to your own unit. On a 2 to 5, you're dealing d6 mortal wounds, and on a 6, the enemy gets d3 plus 3 mortal wounds. So this deals an average of more than let's say three mortal wounds on average to any visible target. And each time he kills a model with the Eater Plague, he can return dead Poxwalkers to his retinue and protection. On the ones, also, if he's dealing the d3 mortal wounds to himself, then the Poxwalkers have a nice mortal wound protection here, 5+ feel no pain. You will be able to save maybe 1 if you get a, let's say, damage 2 or something like this. So compared to if Typhus is leading Terminators, then you might be losing some high value Terminators. Here you'll be losing low value Poxwalkers that have a nice protection and they can be resurrected. So a nice combo and fun and fluffy. So what can we use Poxwalkers for? So if you are thinking about cheap backfield objective holders, I think the Cultists can do it cheaper. They are 55 points instead of the 60 for the Poxwalkers. The Poxwalkers now can do actions, but with the 4-inch movement, they are quite restricted to go to where you want them to go for to make actions. The Cultists would be better here as a cheap action monkey, and they have the scout ability pre-moving before the first battle round to get them to some place where you want to do actions. So the Poxwalkers are not really good for your actions here. Tarp hitting as a screen, that could be quite okay. With their 5+3 no pain, they could be frustrating the enemy, maybe tying down some valuable asset, but they are not invincible anyway. So I think a 20-man bodyguard unit for Typhus is probably the only competitive use or the only use, and it's, as I said, it's quite fun and fluffy, and you can deal. Typhus can deal his mortal wounds with his Poxwalkers around. He can bring them back, and that's quite a fun mechanic, I think. But other than that, I don't see a big use of a lot of Poxwalkers in the competitive lists. Finally, reaching the summary final thoughts, the Poxwalkers have lost a bit of a damage output, and we don't have anymore the mortal wound stratagem that was quite nice, and you could surprise your opponent by doing a lot of mortal wounds on 6s to hit. That was really nice. But they have gained the durability with a 5+ feel no pain. This is always helpful. I think the combo with Typhus is good and fits the lore and Fluffy and so on. They can be replenishable bodyguards for his Eater Plague. Of course, you should watch out for Typhus with precision weapons. If your enemy has a lot of those, they could be sniping Typhus, shooting against toughness 4 for the Poxwalkers. And unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a place to use a lot of them. I guess many of us, like myself included, we have a lot of Poxwalkers in our collections. It would be nice to use them. And for people that like to play with a horde type list, like we had previously with the Terminus Est list, yeah, we don't have these stratagems and these abilities anymore. And then basically now the Poxwalkers are quite slow, and yeah, we don't have the possibility to move them up much faster here. So this concludes the video. What do you think about the Poxwalkers? Have you tried the Poxwalker and Typhus combo? Please let me know in the comments. If you want to, you can join the Discord channel, and you can find links for my Patreon page, and you can also become a YouTube member if you want to support my efforts. So with these words, GeneralJannis signing out. Stay safe out there, and bye-bye.